Hello students, so today we are going to learn a new topic, that is molecular basis of inheritance. Now in this particular part of the topic, we are going to learn the discovery of DNA, the genetic material is a DNA, Griffith's experiment, Avery, McCarthy and MacLeod's experiment, Hershey-Chase experiment and DNA packaging. Again in DNA packaging we learn about eukaryote and prokaryotic DNA packaging. Now, moving further, we learned the first part, that is the discovery of DNA. Now, modern understanding of DNA has evolved from the discovery of nucleic acid to the development of the double helix model. So you can see here an animation image of a double helix model, how the discovery of nucleic acid led to the development of the double helix model. Further, in 1869, Frederick Miescher began working with white blood cells, that is WBCs, which are the major component of pus from infection. So as you know, if there is an infection, the WBCs start to be produced. He collected a lot of pus from bandages at the hospital. He used a salt solution to wash the pus of the bandage. So to clear it, he used a salt solution. When he added a weak alkaline solution to the cells, the cell lysed and nuclei precipitated out of the solution. From the cell nuclei, he isolated a unique chemical substance to which he called nuclein. So he used a simple method by using a weak alkaline solution to the cells, which the lysis of the cells, or as we know, lysis means breakdown or separation. So lysis of the cells and then further precipitation. So he got a unique chemical substance which is named as nuclein. Now chemically nuclein has high phosphorus content. Moreover, it showed acidic properties, hence it was named as nucleic acid. So the reason presence of acidic properties and high phosphorus content, it was later on named as nucleic acid from nuclein. By the early 1900s, we knew that Miescher nuclein was a mix of protein and nucleic acids. So there are two kinds of nucleic acid, that is basically the DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, that is ribonucleic acid. Now moving further, just a little bit of information about the scientist Friedrich Miescher. In 1899, from Germany, isolated deoxyribonucleic acid from the nucleus of the cells, called this white slightly acidic chemical as nuclein, but did not know that it was a genetic material. Moving further, the genetic material is DNA. So initially it was Friedrich Miescher who identified as a nuclein. Now by the early 1900s, geneticists knew that inheritance of traits. So by 1900, the idea about the inheritance of the traits, factors, characteristics came to be known, that genes are located on chromosomes, that chemically chromosomes are mainly composed of DNA and proteins. So what is chromosome containing? DNA and proteins. Initially most geneticists thought that protein are large, complex molecule and store information needed to govern cell metabolism. Hence it was assumed that proteins cause the variation observed within the species. Now what do you understand by this? Earlier it was a, you can say, misconception that protein because of the complex structure, large molecule, might be the chromosome, or might be the reason how the characteristic or traits are inherited in species. On the other hand, DNA, thought to be small, simple molecule, whose composition varied little among species. Over the time, these ideas about DNA were shown to be wrong, as by comparison to protein, DNA was much more simple and small molecule, and it was maximum can say 80-90% to be similar to the all living organism. That's why they did not consider it as the factor of inheritance or the variation. Further, in fact, DNA molecules are large and vary tremendously within and among species. Variations in DNA molecule are different than the variation in shape, electric charge and function shown by proteins. So it is not surprising that most researchers initially favored proteins as the genetic material. So as earlier they considered protein because of the large complex molecule, because of which it can store information, whereas DNA being smaller and simple molecule, they thought it might not be possible to store. But later on the concept changed. Over a period of roughly 25 years, that is from 1928 to 1952, geneticists became convinced that DNA and not protein was the genetic material. So it took almost 25 years for the confirmation or to get convinced that it is not protein but DNA is the factor which carries out the inheritance and variation. Clear? Now I just added an image over here because when they studied more and more about the DNA, they came to know about the components present in it. As we can see, the presence of nitrogenous bases, phosphorus present in it. So later on, as they got the detailed idea about the chemical structure, it becomes easier to understand which was the main part, that is DNA or protein, which transmitted the character. Now, moving further, the Griffith experiment. Okay, now we come to the various experiments carried out by different scientists to show that DNA is the genetic material, right? Now, so first in 1928, a British medical officer, Frederick Griffith, performed an experiment on bacterium Streptococcus pneumoniae that causes pneumonia in humans and other mammals. So the first experiment performed by Frederick Griffith on Streptococcus pneumoniae, which causes pneumonia in humans as well as the other mammals. Further, Griffith used two strains of Streptococcus to find a cure for pneumonia, which was common cause of death at that time. So the two strains were virulent, smooth, pathogenic and uncapsulated, or you can say encapsulated S RNA, whereas second non-virulent, rough, non-pathogenic and non-capsulated, or here we can use the term uncapsulated RNA. So there are two types, one is S type and R type. The S type being virulent, smooth, pathogenic and encapsulated, and R type being non-virulent, rough, non-pathogenic and the non-capsulated type. So these both were found to be present in the death which is caused during that time in the mammals as well as the humans. Now, further, Griffith conducted 4 experiments on these bacteria. First, when he injected bacteria of strain R to mice, the mice survived because it did not develop pneumonia. So the experiments, 4 different experiments he had carried out, in which first he injected the R strain, the mice survived and did not develop pneumonia as well. Second, when he injected bacteria of strain S to the mice developed pneumonia and died. So in second case, when S strain was injected, the mice died because it had developed the pneumonia. Then in third experiment, he injected heat-killed S strain bacteria to the mice. Once again, the mice survived. So again the S strain was injected, but it was heat-killed. So the mice survived because it did not develop pneumonia. In fourth experiment, he mixed the heat-killed S bacteria with the live bacteria of strain R and injected to the mice. The mice died and Griffith recovered large number of live strain S bacteria from the blood of dead mice. So what you observed in the blood, large amount of S strain was present, which actually was heat killed and then mixed with R strain. So in the fourth experiment, or in 4 experiments, something had caused harmless strain R bacterium to change into deadly S strain bacterium. So Griffith showed the change was genetic. So he concluded that maybe something genetic, because of which the R strain which was harmless converted into harmful one, which causes pneumonia and cause death. He suggested that genetic material from the heat kill S strain, that is S bacterium, had somehow changed to living strain R bacterium into the strain S bacterium. So the Griffith concluded that R strain bacterium must have taken up to what he called as transforming principle. That is, the R strain which is harmless converting into harmful one, so there is something which got transformed. So you use the term transforming principle from the heat kill S bacterium, which allowed R strain to get transformed into smooth coated bacterium and become virulent causing the infection. Now here just again little bit of information about Griffith and the image which is there in the text, figure 4.1. That is, in case of the scientist Frederick Griffith, born 1877 in Prescott, England, died 1941, London in England, nationality British, occupation was physician, pathologist, bacteriologist, and known for discovery of pneumococcal transformation. So here the experiment where rough strain, that is R, which was injected, the mouse was alive. Smooth strain were injected, then the mouse died. Third, the heat kill smooth strain S, which was injected, the mouse survived. And the fourth experiment where rough strain and the heat kill S strain both mixed together when injected, the mouse died. So with this diagrammatic image, it becomes easier to understand how the experimentation was carried out. Here we can see the Streptococcus pneumonia, which causes the pneumococcal disease, how this Streptococcus pneumonia looks like. Okay, and here you can see a mouse which is a slightly animation where it is blinking its eye. Okay, coming to the next experiment, that is carried out by Avery, McCarthy and MacLeod's experiment. So here you can see the image of Oswald Avery, Maclean McCarthy, Colin MacLeod, and here how the DNA transforms bacteria. You can just see the image, then we can go into the written matter. Rough non-virulent strain R with the heat kill smooth virulent S strain, when it is mixed together plus protease, the mouse died, and plus DNase, mouse alive. So you can see here in the first point, in 1944, after almost 10 years of research and experimentation, US microbiologist Oswald T. Avery, Colin M. MacLeod and Maclean McCarthy provided first evidence to prove that DNA is the genetic material, that is the transforming principle, the word used by Griffith through the experiment. So now these three scientists, they provided the evidence that is DNA is the genetic material. They purified DNA, RNA, proteins, that is enzymes, and other materials from the cell-free extract of S cells, that is a strain, and mixed with heat kill S strain and R strain separately to confirm which one could be transforming or the transform living R cells into S cells. So only DNA was able to transform harmless strain R into a deadly strain S. So they also discovered that protein digesting enzymes, proteases, RNA digesting enzyme, RNases did not affect transformation. So the transforming substances was neither a protein nor RNA. So the DNA digested with DNase did inhibit the transformation, suggested that DNA caused the transformation. These experiments prove that transforming principle is DNA, but all the biologists were not convinced. So the first experiment carried by these three scientists, Avery, McCarthy and MacLeod, they were successful in showing that DNA transformation which is caused, which converts the dead S turn into a live one, or the RNA which is non-virulent becoming a virulent one. So here it is neither protein or nor RNA but the DNA. But still some biologists were not convinced. Finally, Alfred Hershey and Martha Chase in 1952 proved that DNA is genetic material and not proteins by using bacteriophages. Now further, this again was confirmed by two other scientists, Hershey and Chase. So now moving further to the Hershey and Chase experiment. Here you can see Hershey and Chase work with the viruses that infect bacteria, that is bacteriophage. Now what is bacteriophage? The virus which even infects the bacteria, which are composed of DNA and protein. So they use radioactive phosphorus 32P or P32 in the medium for some viruses and radioactive sulfur S35 for some others. They grew some viruses on a medium that contain radioactive phosphorus and some others on medium that contain radioactive sulfur. Viruses grown in the presence of radioactive phosphorus contain radioactive DNA but not radioactive proteins, because DNA contains phosphorus but proteins do not. So in this part, simply it is understood that viruses grown in the presence of radioactive phosphorus contain the radioactive DNA, as we know that proteins do not have phosphorus, right? Further, similarly, viruses grown on radioactive sulfur contain radioactive protein but not radioactive DNA, because DNA does not contain sulfur. Now vice versa. Similarly, viruses grown on radioactive sulfur contain radioactive protein. Now its proteins has got sulfur as well, but the DNA does not. So again here also the other way around also it was proved. So radioactive phage were allowed to infect E. coli bacteria grown on the medium containing normal P, that is phosphorus, and S, sulfur. Then as the infection proceeded, the viral coats were removed with the help of centrifuge. Bacteria which were infected by viruses with radioactive DNA were radioactive, indicating that DNA was a material that passed from virus to the bacteria. So this experiment finally confirmed that DNA is the one which is passed from the virus to the bacteria, which carries the genetic information, as it was confirmed with the radioactive phosphorus, as DNA contains phosphorus, and vice versa, protein having the sulfur but not the DNA. Further, bacteria which were infected by virus have radioactive sulfur, that is protein, were not radioactive. This indicates that protein from the virus did not enter the bacteria. So proteins did not enter because there was no sulfur. DNA is therefore the genetic material that is passed from virus to bacteria. So it was finally confirmed DNA is the one which is passed from the virus to the bacteria, infecting them. In other words, sometime after infection, radioactivity for P and S was tested. Only radioactive P, that is phosphorus, was found outside the bacterial cell, indicating the DNA is the genetic material. So here finally it was confirmed that DNA being the genetic material, whereas not the protein. So now here we can see the image of the Hershey-Chase experiment from the text figure 4.3. You can see here bacteriophage, sulfur labeled protein capsule and phosphorus labeled DNA. First, infection, blending, centrifugation. Here you can see phosphorus detector. In this case, no sulfur is detected. So three stages: first the infection, then second is the blending, then centrifugation. So you can see sulfur detected in the supernatant, whereas no phosphorus detected in the supernatant. So thereby showing that sulfur is not present in DNA and phosphorus which is not present in protein. So that clearly proves DNA is the genetic material. So here's the image of Martha and Alfred Chase. Here just show an animation image how the bacteriophage looks like, how it infects. See here how the infection is caused when it injects into the bacterium. So here the structure of a bacteriophage which has got a capsid head, the nucleic acid DNA, collar, sheath, the base plate, spikes and the tail fiber. So these spikes helps them to inject inside the body. Now coming to the DNA packaging. Okay, so what is this DNA packaging? Length of DNA double helix molecule in a typical mammalian cell is approximately 2.2 meters. So what is the length? 2.2 meters. Approximately size of a typical nucleus is 10 raised to minus 6 meter. How this long DNA molecule can then accommodated in such a small nucleus? It therefore must be condensed, coiled and supercoiled to fit inside such a small nucleus. So you can see the size is almost 2.2 meters, which is so long, and the nucleus is comparatively smaller. So because it is condensed, coiled and supercoiled, it is easily can be compressed and placed inside the nucleus. So you can see here the image I added for your understanding. There is packaging of DNA, that is here the naked DNA, the active genes, the nucleosome, chromatosomes, the less active genes, that is solenoid, 30 nm fiber, interphase, that is chromatin, metaphase, that is chromosome. Okay, then further here we can see an image where much more clear coiled, how the coiling, supercoiling or condensed appears like. So you can see the actual DNA structure, right? So and you can see how it is separated out, the histones, then the coil, here the nucleosome, further coiling, and here you can see how it supercoils in the chromosome. See how the structure is actually made, how it is present in it, how much coiling and supercoiling is taken place inside the nucleus, right? So how amazing it is. Now we added few more images for understanding animation. So here you can see first the supercoiling structure. The one which you saw in the previous one is just a picture. So here you can see how this coiling supercoiling it is. And the second image you can see the histone proteins, the from the initial part of DNA to the coiling part and further supercoiling of the histones, and in the towards the left side it is the supercoiling image. Now we are coming to the packaging in prokaryotes. Now the two types, one is in prokaryotes, second in eukaryotes. So first part in prokaryotes like E. coli, cell size is almost 2 to 3 micron long. They do not have well organized nucleus. It is without nuclear membrane and nucleolus. The nucleoid is small, circular, highly folded, naked ring of DNA which is 1100 micron long in perimeter, containing about 4.6 million base pairs. Now in case of E. coli, in prokaryotes the size is 2 to 3 micron long. Now they don't have well organized nucleus. This you have learned last year also, that nucleus in case of prokaryote is not well organized, that is without any nuclear membrane or nucleolus, and it is called as what? Nucleus, which is small and circular and highly folded, and it contains 4.6 million base pairs. Okay, further the 1100 micron long, that is approximately 1.1 millimeter nucleoid, is to be fitted into a cell which is hardly 2 to 3 micron long. Hence the negatively charged DNA becomes circular, reducing the size to 350 micrometer in diameter. So again in eukaryotes also, the cell which is 2 to 3 micron long, but in case of the nucleus, that is a nucleoid which is 1100 micron long, much more longer. So how it is fitted? Because of the nucleosid DNA which becomes circular, so the size is reduced. Further, this is further reduced to 30 micrometer in diameter because of the folding loop. 40 to 50 domains or loops are formed. Formation of loops is assisted by RNA connectors. So again, if you see, from 1100 micron, it has reduced to become 350 micrometer by the circular shape, and this circle is further forming loops. So it is again reduced to a smaller size, that is 30 micrometer in diameter. So there is almost 40 to 50 loops or domains. Each domain is further coiled and supercoiled, thereby reducing the size down to 2 micron in diameter, that is almost size of the cell. This coiling is assisted by positively charged HU, that is histone-like DNA binding proteins, and enzyme like DNA gyrase and DNA topoisomerase 1 for maintaining supercoiled state. So to maintain this coiling state, you have got DNA topoisomerase 1 and DNA gyrase, and also it is assisted by HU, which is positively charged histone-like DNA binding proteins. Clear? Now you can see the image again from the text, figure 4.4, DNA packaging in prokaryotes, where you can see circular unfolded chromosome which is 350 micron, then folded chromosome, actually 40 to 50 loops or domains as we just read out, so it is reduced to 30 micron. Then you can see a supercoiled folded chromosome, which you can see from the folded to how supercoiling takes place. Then you can see the partially unfolded chromosome, the RNA cleaved, each loop is independently supercoiled. So here supercoiling, it is almost 2 micron. Then the nicked DNA, which is partially uncoiled chromosome, and then finally the partial DNA's digestion, partial RNA's digestion, which helps to maintain the shape. So here you can see again how the coiling and supercoiling takes place. So I added just 2 animation images for understanding. So all these images and animation images helps you to understand how this coiling and supercoiling takes place. So here you can see, as I mentioned, in E. coli or the bacterial DNA packaging, neutral, acidic, you can see HU, that is histone-like binding proteins, and the DNA, which forms a ring-like structure. Moving further, packaging in eukaryotes. Now, eukaryotes show well-organized nucleus containing nuclear membrane, nucleolus, and thread-like material in the form of chromosomes. In the chromosome, DNA is associated with histone and non-histone proteins, as was reported by R. Korenberg in 1974. So, in comparison to the prokaryotes, eukaryotes has got well-developed nucleus, whereas in prokaryotes, as already learned, they don't have well-developed nucleus, no nuclear membrane, no nucleus, simply it is called as nucleoid. Here you got well-developed nuclear membrane, well-developed nucleolus, chromosome which is thread-like, which was presented by R. Korenberg in 1974. Also, DNA contains histone and non-histone proteins. Clear? The second point, the organization of DNA is much more complex in eukaryotes, depending upon the abundance of amino acid residue with charged side chains. The protein acquires its charge. Histones are the proteins that are rich in lysine and arginine residues. So histone proteins which are present in DNA contains lysine and arginine. Further, both these amino acid residues are basic amino acids and carry positive charges with them. So histones are set of positively charged basic protein. There is histone press protamine. These histones organize themselves to make a unit of 8 molecule known as histone octamer. As you know, octa means 8, right? So you can see in this image the nucleosome where you can see the octamer very clearly. You can see H2A, H2A, H2B, H2B, H4, H3, H4, H3, and they're coiled by DNA helix, and here you can see H1. So how the nucleosome is formed, and it appears like histone octamer. Then similarly I added another image how this DNA helix, how you can see slowly how the histones are coiled around, okay, forming the nucleosome. So here also I added this education image which helps to understand how the coiling and supercoiling takes place. Now moving further, now what is this nucleosome? So as you saw in the previous, it is a histone octamer. So here also the image from the text figure 4.5. So you can see the image first. Again here H2B, H3, H4, H2A, and it shows a octamer shape H1 histone, the DNA. So coming to the points, the negatively charged helical DNA is wrapped around the positively charged histone octamer, forming a structure known as nucleosome. So what is the structure form? Nucleosome, which includes what? The histone, which is you can see the different histones H4, H3, H1, then H2A, H2B, right? And it forms a structure known as nucleosome. The nucleosome core is made up of two molecules each of four types of histone proteins. So as I read out the names, what are these actually? Histone proteins, the four types, that is H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. So two molecules each, and H1, which you can see here, right, linear protein binds the DNA thread where it enters and leaves the nucleosome. One nucleosome approximately contains 200 base pair long DNA helix wound around it. About 146 base pair long segment of DNA remains present in each nucleosome. So there is 146 base pair long segment of DNA which is present in each nucleosome. And what is another important thing? 200 base pair long DNA helix. So nucleosomes are repeating units of chromatin which are thread-like stained bodies present in nucleus. These look like beads on string when observed under the electron microscope. So what do you mean by beads or string? If you have seen the beads, whether it is string, whether it is a bracelet or a necklace, where you can see the beads how it is arranged, so it looks like a or gives a similar appearance. DNA helix of 200 base pairs wraps around the histone octamer by 1/3 turns. 6 such nucleosomes gets coiled and then forms solenoid that looks like coiled telephone wire. Okay, so if you see here the figure 4.6, chromatin showing beads on the string. So you can see very clearly how the beads is looking like or appearing like, and this again in a you can say higher magnification, you can see how the individual nucleosome appears as such. In this you can see the minute image how the nucleosome actually are. Okay. Now moving further, the chromatin is packed to form a solenoid structure of 30 nanometer diameter or 300 angstrom unit, and further supercoiling tends to form a looped structure called chromatin fiber, which further coils and condenses at metaphase stage to form the chromosomes. Now, last year, as you learned in the chapter cell division, the various stages, that is prophase, metaphase, anaphase and the telophase. So in the metaphase stage, it forms the chromosome, that is by condensing and coiling. So the packaging of chromosome at higher levels need additional set of proteins that are called non-histone chromosomal proteins or NHC. So other than the histone proteins, you need additional proteins which helps for the packaging part, which are the NHC or non-histone chromosomal proteins. So here you can see the nucleosome. As you have already seen the image earlier, here I put an animation image which helps to understand much more clear with the 4 types of histones, the 2 molecules each, so it forms a histone octamer. So very clearly you can see the histone octamer structure. Then you can see another image from the text, figure 4.7, DNA packaging, beads on string magnified. So DNA wound around histone proteins, which you can see a nucleosome, the linker DNA. Then you can see here B chain of nucleosomes forming 10 to 11 nanometer thick fiber, and then C solenoid forming 13 nanometer thick fiber. Again, I added few more animation image for understanding of the coiling, supercoiling, condensation, all these things. So it helps to understand it in much more easier way. So again, come to the right side first. The right side you can see histone proteins, right? And then the nucleosomes, and then how it is joined with each other, right? By the linker DNA. So nucleosome and the linker DNA is very clear, and the nucleosome having the histone proteins. Now come to the left side, the nucleosome, which is again clear what you can see on the right, but see the coiling part, and or you can see from the descending order, chromatin or the chromosomes, the threadless section which is highly supercoiled, and then coiling part, and then you can see this nucleosome now very clearly. So this is how the nucleosome, with the help of histone and non-histone, with the help of the linker DNA, coils, condenses, supercoils, and then the chromosome is formed. So I think these both animation image helps to clearly understand how the coiling and supercoiling takes place. Okay, now the non-histone chromosomal protein, that is NHC. So these are additional set of proteins that contribute to packaging of chromatin at a higher level. So heterochromatin, euchromatin. So again there are 2 types over here. First is heterochromatin. In eukaryotic cell, some segments of chromosome during interphase and early prophase remains in condensed state. These regions constitute heterochromatin. It is generally mostly inactive. So this heterochromatin is actually inactive, and some segments of the chromosome which is present during the interphase and early prophase, which is in the condensed state, and that is nothing but the heterochromatin. It stains strongly and appear dark. Heterochromatin is 2 to 3 times more rich in DNA than euchromatin. So heterochromatin, 2-3 important points to remember. What is that? One, the DNA, it is more rich in DNA. Second, it remains condensed state. Third, it is inactive and it stains strongly. That's why it is more dark in color comparative to euchromatin. So second one, euchromatin, the region of chromosome which are in condensed state constitute euchromatin. Euchromatin's region stains light. Euchromatin is generally or genetically very much active, fast replicating. Now if you again compare here, euchromatin stains light in comparison to the heterochromatin which is dark. Here it is genetically very much active and fast replicating. Clear? Here again you can see animation image showing the euchromatin where nucleosomes are present. Here you can see the labeling parts, histone modification acetyl group, flag-like appearance, euchromatin modification, the yellow colored, and the red colored heterochromatin modification. So you can see here the heterochromatin, the euchromatin, which has got the nucleosome along with the euchromatin, that is the yellow colored modifications and the red colored one. Okay. So the last part, that is assignment based on what we learned today. Hopefully the concept of packaging, prokaryotic, eukaryotic both are clear, as well as the experiments by Griffith, Avery, McCrory and McCarthy and the Hershey Chase is clear to you. So thank you all of you.